Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Nourish Life Show. So, on today's topic, it's all about happiness by design. And for me, this is such a big topic, and I just want to put out here a piece of content which is short, consumable, which people can listen to, and it changes the way that we view happiness. The reason being is at current my inbox is getting absolutely hammered with certain questions when it comes down to positivity, mindset, the absolute works. And I really feel that the way that happiness has gone and what's happening on social media is that it's become disjointed. And actually, more to the point, I really feel that people are starting to disempower themselves or postpone happiness. So again, my whole point with this piece of content is to place something out here which again can flip the way that we think about happiness. Now, as always, I love a good quote, so I'm going to kick this one off with this one, which is, happiness isn't something that we postpone for the future. Happiness is something that we can create in the present. And that is such a powerful quote. The reason being, it really just knits itself and bodes itself so well into this piece of content. So let's flip this back. So happiness by design. How do we create a position where happiness isn't something that happens in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? How do we create happiness in every given moment? Because at the end of the day, when we're speaking to people, happiness is usually at the forefront of a goal. But when we really think about life, isn't happiness and fulfillment like the goal, the key, like the biggest thing that we should be getting, that we should be doing, that we should be feeling all the time? And that's just the way that I personally view it. And for me, a lot of the content that we place out here is to help people get that. And I really feel that this is going to go far. So point number one in my little series of Happiness by Design podcast is taking personal responsibility. We have to take personal responsibility for our own happiness. Happiness is an inside job. But what this really means is having a moment of honesty. And I empower so many people to really do this. Is number one, do a self-awareness audit. Am I currently happy? What am I not happy with? What am I exposing myself to that is making me feel unhappy, which is taking away, which is leeching it? Who am I hanging around with, which is taking away my happiness? What environments am I placing myself into, which is taking away my happiness? What am I seeing on my social media feeds, which are making me feel not good enough, which are making me feel like I'm not doing enough, which are making me feel unhappy? We have to take personal responsibility for this sort of stuff. And as always, it all starts with personal awareness. My honest advice is, once you've understood that my happiness is my duty, then it's a case of auditing and being really aware of what you're placing yourself into, what you're exposing yourself into, media, social circles, environments, the absolute works. Now, the biggest thing here is when it comes down to taking personal responsibility, and this is a perfect segue into point number two, is with personal responsibility means that we have to empower ourselves to create happiness. Now, the big thing that I see happening all the time when I'm speaking to people, when I'm doing coaching events, or just helping people on an individual basis, I see we really disempower ourselves, and it hurts me. And you see telltale signs in people's language. So I really hope that this point resonates and hits home. I will be happy when. Think about that statement. I will be happy when. I will be happy when I have lost weight. I will be happy when I have that Rolex. I will be happy when I have that car. I will be happy when I have X amount of money in the account. I will be happy when I'm with a person. We disempower ourselves every single time we think or say those words, I will be happy when. We have removed our personal power. We have placed it outside of ourselves and not brought it in. But more to the point, with an I will be happy when statement, when we think about that initial quote, which I said at the beginning, happiness isn't something that we postpone for the future. it is something we have to take hold of and bring into the present, we're not doing that. When we attach happiness to something outside of ourselves, not only have we disempowered ourselves personally and removed happiness from basically the table, we've also entered something called a happiness trap. And this whole point of this podcast, I implore you, if you're in the happiness trap, become aware of it and get the hell out of it as fast as you can. When we use I will be happy when, not only do we remove the power, but we've placed happiness into the future. And you've got to think about this. Human psychology of I will be happy when we're in chase mentality and going after a goal, what do? Humans, when we are achieving a goal or when we are seeing ourselves progress to a goal, we've got this amazing habit of moving the goalposts. We move the goalposts forwards. So for example, we see this a lot in the fitness industry. Someone who just wanted to lose a couple of pounds suddenly starts to see progress and then, oh, I can lose more. Oh, I can do more. Oh, I can compete at this. Now, you've got to think of the danger here. If you've attached happiness to that endpoint and goal, and every single day, week, month, you're moving the goalposts further, it's never going to come. You're never going to get it. And the thing here, what happens when you're in the chase mentality is you're always moving forward. You're so key focused on what's happening forwards that you're constantly allowing yourself to be in a breeding ground of things like fear, worry, not doing enough, not being enough. And instead, always looking forwards prevents you looking back, which actually gives you peace of mind, joy, accomplishment. And you've got to remember, there's these two gaps, which I just did a really big piece of content over on my Instagram channel. The two gaps, the gap of the forward gap. When it comes to happiness, a lot of the time we focus so much on that forward gap. Where am I now? Where am I going? And we place very little, if any, focus onto the backwards gap, which is where have I come from and where am I now? The backwards gap is breathing space. It allows us to feel fulfillment in what we've done already. It allows us to look back, connect the dots of the things that really lit us up, the things that we enjoyed, the things that brought out happiness. We have to get a good balance. Now, the majority of the time, what we do is when we're in the happiness trap, we enter the chase mentality, which, again, is like chasing the horizon. If you're going after a goal and constantly moving the goalposts without paying any attention to what you've done, it's like chasing the horizon. You're never going to get it. You're never going to catch it. So if we just sum up that blueprint for changing the way that we think about happiness and happiness by design, number one, we've got to empower ourselves. Personal responsibility for happiness. It's on our shoulders. It is an internal game. We have to realize that from the get-go. Point number two is to really raise your levels of self-awareness. If you need to do an audit, then do an audit. Review everything which you're exposing yourself to. Your environment, media channels, relationships, work relationships, yourself, the entire works. What are the things that we're currently doing that are making us feel this way? How can we change and salute them so that we're actually bringing in more things that allow us to feel more happy and more positive? Point number three, we have to break the trap. The happiness trap has to be removed and you have to remove yourself from it. I will be happy when does not serve you. If anything, it disempowers you, places your happiness into the future, and if you enter the chase mentality whilst in the happiness trap, you'll never get it. Now, point number three with this is forgiveness. When it comes down to happiness, the majority of the time we build up this big wall. We build up a huge wall of not forgiving either ourselves or things that have happened to us. And believe it or not, happiness has actually been shown when people forgive people, it immediately makes people feel better. Now, understandably, that can be a lengthier process with regards to whatever that it is that needs to be healed or forgiven. But happiness has been scientifically shown that if forgiveness and letting go or forgiving yourself is done, then it has an immediate effect on someone's happiness levels and someone's positive state. So the biggest thing that I really want to point out with this entire podcast and this segment is we have to change the way that we view happiness, because the current model and the current way that it's viewed isn't actually bringing happiness any closer. It's actually pushing it further away. So with all this being said, this now places us in a position where we're not doing things just to be happy. We're happy to be able to go and do things. Now, when you're going after a goal, be it in business, relationships, you name it, and you're happy as you're going through the process, it's going to make it more enjoyable. It's going to make it more fun. It's going to make it more like play, and you're going to enjoy it, open more doors, more opportunities, bring in the right people as you go, because you're happy in your process and you're not relying on the process to make you happy. So with all this being said, if we break down some of the core fundamentals which we really see in successful, happy people, what does it relate to? So I've come together here and I've put quite a few things which I've really noticed in my career which these people do, and they do them really well, and they ingrain them as habits and rituals. So number one is that they savor the moment. They do very well at being present. Number two, they have some form of mental daily hygiene, such as meditation, yoga, could even be going out walking. You've got to remember, happiness is bespoke. It's bespoke to you. You've got to find those mental hygiene methods that will do best for you. I always like to look at it this way as well when it comes down to like mental hygiene is you got to think of this. In the morning, what is your routine for physical freshening up or physical hygiene? You go for a shower, you brush your teeth, you have your beauty regime, you put on fresh clothes, but what are you actually doing for the internal driver? Are you creating an internal hygiene system? So one thing I implore you to do is with the habits of the happy, is look at your mental health regime. Do you have one? And is there something you can do on the day-to-day? Be it visualization, be it meditation, be it gratefulness journaling. You've got to find your way of doing it and put your stamp on it. I've also noticed that they don't hold on to grudges. Like one of the biggest points was what we mentioned before there, is they're very good at letting go and not holding on to things and suffering within that. They realize that number one, pain does happen. It's very quick, but holding on to it only creates the suffering. I've also noticed that they're very good at giving random acts of kindness, spending money on others and doing things. It could just be literally doing thoughtful things for other people, maybe leaving notes, little text messages, just checking in on friends, seeing how other people are doing. But that's something that I've always noticed in the habits of the happy, is that they do things for other people. They look after themselves and they make things like health, rest, mental health the absolute priority. So they're very good at either eating well, self-care work, mental health work, movement work, getting enough rest, having a sleep routine. They're very good at self-investment and looking after themselves, and that is an absolute paramount priority within that person's life. Then next up, the importance of a social circle that helps them thrive. They're very good at supporting themselves and being around people that support them. When it comes down to bringing out the best version of themselves, but also when it comes down to projects that they're working on. They're very, very good at understanding if a situation isn't serving them or a social situation isn't serving them and rectifying it. I've also found that they're very busy, but yet not rushed. They're very quick to understand that when they rush, they become stressed. So then what they do is take a step back, take a breather, think logically about a situation, and then go into it, instead of acting immediately on emotion. So again, they can be busy, but they never rushed. I've also found that they never sweat the small stuff. They're very good at the whole practice of what I was saying before when it comes down to the whole forgiving and letting go. When small things happen, they don't take them to heart or they don't immediately react. They're very good at understanding that that is something small and just pushing it to the side or eliminating it or letting go of it. I've also found that with the habits of the happy people, they treat everyone with kindness and respect. They're always doing things out of just sheer kindness and respect for other people. They're always contributing, they're always connecting, and they enter relationships and connections with questions like, how can I help you? How can I be of service? And that's a common thing that I've always found. I've always found that they lead through optimism. There's never a focus on a problem. Instead, it's more about a focus onto a solution. How can we salute the situation that we're currently in? I found that the majority of them have morning rituals or routines, and if those rituals and routines don't happen, it really has a big impact on their day. So I've always found that with like really happy, successful people, what they do is they hone in on their morning rituals and they make them into non-negotiables. And then within that, I've also found that the majority of them have things like grateful practices, things that they're grateful for, or reflective practices where they're able to look back, see what went well, and have gratitude for the things that went well and maybe redirect the needle if things didn't. I've also found that they spend a lot of time in nature. So they've got practices or hobbies and things that take them away from situations and put them into a position where they can get space to view things from. So they're not always in the trenches, they're also away and make time to get away to look over things. I've always found that they've had growth mindsets and open mindsets. They're always looking at learning. They're always open to new ideas. They're never fixed or closed. And then a real core one that I've found is that they're always moving towards something. Something has a purpose. They've got a purpose of where they're going. They're either dreaming big or their actions are moving them towards something and they're seeing themselves progress. Now, these are all habits that I've picked up in my time, which I've seen people do that either A, make them happier, makes them show up as a better person, or makes them more positive in interactions or the things that they're doing. Now, I'm not saying that these are the core essentials of things that we need to do to be happier individuals, because it's not. We're bespoke. We've got to find the things that make us happy as individuals. However, what I've always found is success leaves clues, happiness leaves clues. We can look at other people's blueprints to what they have done and take things away and incorporate some things in our lives and take things away from it. And I really feel that this is a big thing. And something else that I really want to point out with the end of this show is, out of everyone who I've spoke to who I've found has these habits, these non-negotiables, or that I look up to, is that at some point in their life, they've not had them. And they've had to go through these steps of really creating an environment and engineering happiness back into their own lives. So there we have it. That is the happiness episode, engineering happiness episode. And I really hope this has helped change the way that people view happiness. Maybe it's made you realize a couple of stumbling blocks you've had in your own mindset and the way that you're currently viewing it. Or maybe it's just giving you some things that you kind of want to go and try, new habits that you feel that you might want to install. Or maybe it's just giving you that insight where you want to go and rediscover your own things that make you a happier individual. But apart from that, guys, that has been Engineering Happiness, Happiness by Design podcast with me, Simon Hall. If that has helped, as always, please share the love or tag people in that this can help. Now, there's someone who I want to introduce you to who's going to round up this show. He's probably one of the happiest individuals I know. And at the same time, he's also one of the most talented individuals I know. If you give this man any extension of his soul, be it a camera, video creation software, an instrument, this guy just produces magic. So, guys, this is my good friend Joel Gardner.
Well, I've watched the stars until they faded away. I lay there in the darkness in hope for brighter days. Well, I've seen the mountains, I've swam in the sea. Oh, but I've taken for granted what I have around me, what I have around me. Down in the seams, I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. Down in the deep, I've realized there's more to life than you. The whistle time, the grass is growing green. I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. I've realized there's more to life than you. Maybe I was a broken mess again. Maybe I took too long to understand why that seeing you once or twice a month just wasn't enough. And it was only a matter of time until we ran out of luck, till we ran out of love. Down in the seams, I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. Down in the deep, I've realized there's more to life than you. The world's still turning, the grass is growing green. I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. I've realized there's more to life than you. Down in the seams, I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. Down in the deep, I've realized there's more to life than you. The world's still turning, the grass is growing green. I've realized there's more to life than you, babe. I've realized there's more